are children who were abused. And maybe they had more than one ACE score, but they experienced abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. The group are individuals that did not experience any ACE in their childhood. So these are all adults. We're looking at brains here. So these neuroscientists look to see, are there differences in brains? Are there differences between people that were spanked, people that were abused, people that didn't experience any ACE in their life? What does that look like? And what it showed is that, oh my goodness, sorry. What it showed is that the gray matter, so the gray matter is the part of the brain that is used to process information, okay? The gray matter in the brain is decreased in certain areas, so I can call attention to this. The pink is decreased gray matter in the medial prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for emotion regulation, inhibition control, decision making, and cognitive flexibility. Now, if you have decreased processing space in those areas, think about the effects, okay? Hold on to that as we kind of continue this journey. Up here on the model, the green, they also found decreased gray matter in this gray area for both, I should rewind a bit. This is for both children who've been spanked and for children who experienced abuse. There's no difference in the brain, okay? No difference. Their brains had the exact same makeup afterwards. And it's this decreased processing patterns in these matters, or in these areas of the brain that are responsible for these really big facets of humanness, right? So the green is the cingulate gyrus that's responsible for conflict monitoring, error detection, attention, deficits again, right? So decreased processing in those areas. The blue up here represents the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. What that is, it's an area of the brain responsible for working memory, goal-driven attention, planning, problem solving, reward seeking, and deliberate decision making. Okay, all of these areas are affected in the groups of people that experience spanking as their only ACE, people who experienced abuse. So this is compared to folks that did not have any ACEs in childhood. Additional neuroimaging findings. So what I was talking about before is the gray matter, right? Additional neuroimaging findings, functional findings. So how is the brain working? How is it actually working in real time? There's changes there too. One change is to the nucleus accumbens. The nucleus accumbens is responsible for the pleasure and reward system. So this is implicated often in substance use, right? The prefrontal cortex is also, the function of the prefrontal cortex is also changed for individuals who've experienced trauma. The prefrontal cortex is necessary for impulse control and executive function. And then the amygdala is also affected. The amygdala is the fear response center of the brain. So I want to call attention to this point here in the middle. These neurologic findings help us understand why people who are exposed to high doses of adversity are more likely to engage in high-risk behavior, right? Makes sense. Think about it. I'm going to come back to this, but I want to show you some data. I want to show you some health effects on this, okay? So here is a relationship between trauma and high-risk behavior. 1 in 8 people have experienced 4 or more ACEs. Now, when that level of ACEs is at 4, research, lots and lots of research, compiled research over thousands of studies over years and years and years, okay? This research is starting to show some increased prevalence of some adverse effects in health. People who have had 4 or more ACEs are 3 times more likely to develop lung disease and be smokers as adults. People who have had 4 or more ACEs are 4 times as likely to have begun having intercourse by age 15. People who have had 4 or more ACEs are 11 times more likely to use intravenous drugs. And people who have had 4 or more ACEs are 14 times more likely to attempt suicide. So early adversity dramatically affects health across a lifetime. So there were 1,574 studies, outcomes, compiled together. And what that concluded, it's called a meta-analysis. What that concluded is that brain changes from childhood trauma resulted in an increase in adverse mental health outcomes, such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders. Okay? An increase in the incidence of physical health outcomes, such as increase in stroke risk, respiratory disease, diabetes, cancer, migraines, and other adverse outcomes, such as increased aggression, decreased IQ, and lower self-esteem. I want to call attention to the bottom here where it says people with 6 or more ACEs can die 20 years earlier than those who have none. Now, this is based on research being done years and years and years, compiled of thousands and thousands of studies. This is what research is showing. This is the data, okay? But you may have recognized that so far, I've only focused on adverse experiences by people that have engaged in high-risk behavior. You may be left thinking, well, what if a traumatized person does not engage in high-risk behaviors? Are there still negative outcomes? Yes. Yes. They are still more likely to develop heart disease and cancer. And high doses of trauma will affect the nervous system, the immune system, the hormonal system, and even how a person's DNA is read and transcribed. So to demonstrate this, I want to take you on a journey, okay? I'm going to give you an example. So what is a fight or flight response? This is what people experience who've experienced trauma experience all the time. Let's imagine us all on this walk out here together. We're walking outside on this trail. It's a beautiful day. The sun is warm. It's making your skin warm. It's feeling good. There's a light breeze. You can hear the leaves rustling. The flowers are blooming. The scent is filled with fresh air. It's peaceful. How's your body feeling? Right? Maybe relaxed. Maybe at peace. Maybe calm. Now this guy. Now you see this guy. Right? Imagine you run into this guy on the trail. What happens? That peacefulness instantly changes. It takes nothing for that to change, right? Immediately, the fight or flight system is turned on. Immediately. It's immediately activated. What happens? Your heart beats faster. You got to get blood to your periphery, right? So your digestion stops. You get more energy to your muscles so you can get out of there, right? Or fight. Your pupils dilate, so you take in more light. You can see your surroundings. It becomes more acute in your immediate area, right? All of those things serve to protect you, serve to keep you safe, serve to get you out of danger, right? It's crucial. This system is crucial for our safety. But now imagine you have to live with this snake every day, right? Imagine the fear that there is. Imagine that activation happening all the time, not being able to turn it off, right? Your system's in overdrive. And while a person may not go on to express more high-risk behaviors, that doesn't mean they aren't affected. Because that system on overdrive takes you over. And over time, it wears on your health. It wears on your immunity. And it leads to some of these outcomes that I was describing earlier, right? I like to use analogies. I think they're really helpful in kind of conceptualizing things and understanding them a little bit more. I like to conceptualize your brain's capacity, like what your brain is able to do in a day, right? So every question, every engagement, every decision, every movement, everything you do takes a little bit of pie. I like to imagine it as a pie. I like to imagine your brain space as a pie, okay? Now, everything you do takes a piece. This activation that happens, this trauma activation that happens, takes a piece of pie, right? Big old piece of pie. Big piece of pie. And these children are left with little slivers, right? Now, there's a universal sign that everybody, now this transcends every person in the world, okay? We all have the same response when our dish is getting empty. Every single one of us do. Now, children, adults, doesn't matter the gender, race, ethnicity, none of that matters. We all have the same response when our pie dish is empty or coming to be empty. And what that is that we begin to have big reactions to small problems. Have you been there? Have you felt that? You know what I'm talking about? Where you just don't have the capacity and you snap, right? It makes sense. That's what we all do. That's where we all are. And if we don't have the pie, how are we going to move forward, right? So thinking about a child and their experience, if they grow up with a lot of yelling, hitting, threatening, that's going to shape how their brain develops and how their neurons fire, right? The child is left with very little pie to engage with learning, problem solving, memory recall, empathy, moral development. That's big, right? But we are the change. It starts today, right? We must have the courage to look at this problem in the face and say, this is real and this is in all of us. Let's give our children some of our pie, right? 3 ways that you can rebake a pie, right? One of it is to get pie from somebody else. It looks like therapy sometimes. That looks like mentorship. That looks like talking to a friend or a trusted loved one, family member, right? Now, children aren't great at rebaking their pie, frankly speaking, right? And it's our job to support them in that. But we can't support their pie regrowth or rebirth without having pie ourselves. If we don't have the pie, we can't give it to them, right? 3 ways to rebake it, okay? First, get a good night's sleep. I know that's hard. That's really hard to do. But have you ever woke up in the morning and felt refreshed? Felt like you can do all the things that you want to do or you have set out to do? That's a fully baked pie, right? We don't have the luxury of getting that every day. That doesn't happen every day. So there's 2 other ways. And I mentioned one of the others, right? Getting some pie from somebody else. Therapy can be so important. Reaching out, talking, processing with somebody else, right? Getting maybe a little piece of their pie. But the 3rd way, which I argue is by far the most important way, is to give yourself a little love, a little kindness, a little compassion, a little grace, okay? Love yourself so we can spread the love to others. That's what I got for you.
Come on, let's give Doc a nice round of applause. That was awesome. Awesome right there. How many need some pie in your life? I was talking about some apple pie, blueberry, peach. I'm just excited. That was really good. All right. So the next speaker that we're going to bring up, the next speaker is Mrs. Helen Reynolds. Now, before I bring her up, Helen Reynolds she's a therapist. Mrs. Reynolds is a psychotherapist. I mean, she's an entrepreneur. I mean, she's phenomenal. She's an author. So she does a lot of great things in the community. I'm talking about, we got Milwaukee has a wealth of knowledge and inspiration in this community. So without further ado, we present to some and introduce to others, Miss Helen Reynolds. Come on. Act like you mean it.
The bags are cute, right? They so cute. Shiny. maybe your favorite color, but this is representative of us. This is how we show up to the world. Polished, well put together, like we got it together, right? But we're going to open the contents, and I just want you to breathe. You might want to inhale, exhale, right? I'm keeping it real, because it's Keep It Real 100 mental health. Go on and open, ooh, Jesus, did you just do me like that? Okay, open your bag, take it out. Okay. Hey, that's how we be, right? I know, listen, we be like, this ain't my stuff, right? This not me. Don't we say that? Look how that's working out. Don't we say that ain't me? But when ain't nobody looking, ooh, Clem, that's you. That's, ooh, I know. Look, yeah. Come on. Who want to share out? I'm going to go first. Because I'm, grudge. Ooh-wee. I was one of those people who, listen, don't cross me. I called it a holder. I'm talking about I can hold you. It can be 20 years later, and if I run up on you, I'm like, You remember? They like, hey, Helen. I'm like, hey, Helen, what? You remember I was a grudge holder. But this one little word is a heavy hitter. It weighed me down. It prevented me from being a better version of myself. So I was carrying this. All right? Who want to share? What you got? Who want to go next?
I'll go next.
What you got?
You're not a mistake.
Ooh. Is this some on your other side?
Nope, not that one.
Okay. When you read that, what did you feel? Because you felt something. It's okay. We family.
I don't know. I don't know. My parents always told me I was an accident.
Now listen, I can't make this up. I'm telling you about the move of God. Did you hear this man? This ain't Miss Helen. I promise you. This is intentional. Now this man, I am not a mistake. And then he connected to that weight because he shared out in his transparency that his mama always thought, his parents told him he was a mistake, which we know is a lie from the pit of hell. Because life is a blessing. No matter how conceived, how difficult it is, how the parents struggle, life is a blessing. So you are not a mistake. Look how God is confirming you. Listen, I'm going to be who I am. Thank you for sharing out. You're not a mistake.
Thanks.
I got abused. And it says it was not your fault. And yes, I was physically and emotionally abused in Chicago growing up my whole life. But I still still strong, held through.
I know that's right. You know why? Because you are overcome. And greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So you didn't know how you were made, right? You didn't know how you survived and how you were your family. I'm telling you about the God that we serve, right? Thank you for sharing out. What you got over there?
Neglect.
Ooh, we.
Well, I can say that's what brought me here today because when I needed somebody, I felt neglected. And when I'm in and out right now, I make sure that people who cross my path are not feeling that way. So I support them in the neglected areas.
Yeah. Listen, let me tell you, listen. I'm going to say this because I can hear the word bleeding out. We can be bleeding out on life support and still pour into somebody else's cup. I'm trying to tell y'all how God will work. Damaged, used, and abused, God can still use you. I'm a living example. I'm trying to tell y'all. Thank you for sharing. I'm still talking about mental health, keeping it 100. Okay, what you got, Miss Lady?
Do I have to share?
And you do, because listen, that's how you get delivered and tell the truth.
That's it.
Don't let the devil try to blackmail you, keep you in the corner, tell him you coming out.
I didn't know it was something on the other side.
And that's okay.
First side says shame. Second side says hurt.
How did that resonate with you?
Um, there's a lot of things that I did and a lot of things that happened in my life that I'm ashamed of. And there's a whole lot of hurt going on in my life.
Thank you for sharing that. You know what? God is awesome, y'all. Listen, I'm almost done. I promise you. Listen, he said all things work together for your good. So even those areas of hurt, even that shame, use you to destroy you. He will use you as a weapon of mass destruction to destroy you. So somebody's sing, and I ain't gonna sing because I can't. I'm gonna stay with what I can do, okay? Listen, sometimes you gotta encourage yourself. And the Bible clearly says, as I go to my seat, because I feel, okay, listen. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but God shall deliver them from them all. I'm telling you, God, mental health, keep it 100, right? Listen, so no matter what you got, what you carry, listen, God is a deliverer. Listen, you can get your breakthrough, but you gotta first tell the truth. You don't gotta be telling no lies. The first lies when we told it to ourselves. Somebody be like, "How you doing?" "I'm alright." I'm like, "You just lied." You know, and you're like, "Well, I ain't really want to go into it." Well, you're gonna have to keep it 100 with yourself. You know, I'm in a struggle, but I'm striving. I'm pressing. I'm pushing. I'm encouraged. I'm uplifted. Because the Bible says to speak those things that are not as if they were. I'm not lying. Did you see how I'm covered? Somebody like, I know I'm saying that because I did. Because the Bible says I can and I could and I am. So I'm done, y'all. This is mental health, keeping it 100. Yeah, we're going to put that on the altar. Amen. You are welcome. Thank you.
She keeping it 100. Come on, let's give it up for my sister, Miss Helen, and my sister, Miss Jess. Powerful. We talking about keeping it 100. Anybody getting anything from it so far? All right. Do you have any questions right now? I guess you want to save them to last, huh? All right. Feel free to ask any questions or anything of that nature. That was powerful. Examples as well. So let's give it up for her again. Come on now. Let's give it up. Can you pass me that water, please, sir? So let's go to the next one. Next one. Thank you. All right. So keeping it 100. Y'all want us to keep it 100? Okay. So here, I'm going to have to stand up on the stage. I like to walk around. So, all right. So I'm going to talk to you real briefly today about keeping it 100. We're talking about the mental wellness. We're talking about the childhood trauma and resilience. And we'll have the panelists going to go and talk about that more a little bit later on after we do the lunch and learn, okay? So here, I do have a master's degree in mental health counseling from Concordia University. I'm a clinical substance abuse counselor too as well. And I have a master addiction counselor. So I got a few alphabets. I'm grateful. So pretty much, I happen to be an author and I happen to be a pastor. So I want to put this out here, this disclaimer, that during this presentation, there's different aspects of drug addiction and alcoholism will be discussed. Both legal and medical aspects of addictions will be presented with purpose of educating and reducing any harm to both the company or individuals from any addiction. All right? So if you have any addiction, and it might trigger something, right? Nothing stated during this presentation should be, though, as a medical or legal advice. We're just presenting the information. It's up to you to do something about it. Y'all got that? Not only that, if you have medical or legal concerns about a situation, please consult your doctor. All right? If you have, or your therapist. Consult them. All right? So when you see this right here, what comes to thought for you? What comes to mind? Violence. All right? Violence. Anybody else? Come on, sir. What did you say? Temptation. Yes, sir. Come on, ma'am. Give up. Options. Anybody over here? Explosion. Addiction. Come on, sir. Ma'am. What did you say, Brother Robert? Overstimulation. Mm-hmm. Brain and overload. All right, come on. Racing thoughts. Racing thoughts. Come on. Reality. Thanks, narrator. So, yeah, you see he's got a book there and the Bible and diploma. Did anybody talk about that one? Huh? Look at the heart. Somebody got his heart. And then the brain. So when I look at that, I think about the many choices and options that some of you said today that the youth and young children have growing up in today's society, especially with the social media. Especially with them, you give them the iPad and say, here, this is your babysitter right here. Play the iPad, play the games, and I'm going to go do something different. So one thing about iPads and television is television. So in other words, you download certain information that they get, and then they start acting on it. Eventually, they become normal. And we're going to talk about that, all right? So you will gain a clear understanding of the effect of alcohol and other drugs that you have on the body. All right, I'm going to talk about that, and your mind and your life. Hopefully you'll understand how chemical dependency and the relationship with alcohol and other drugs impact the mindset. Also, you will recognize, understand terms such as the disease model, the tolerance, polysubstance abuse, and co-occurring disorders. We're going to explore some of those facts and understand the impact of how alcohol and drugs impact you psychologically, physiologically, and all those different areas. What I mean by that, your body and your mind. So marijuana, alcohol, cocaine. So this is what the medical professional says, that substance abuse, I might have to go over here. Substance abuse use changes the brain, which can make drug use compulsive. You ever heard of the OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD? That's what usually happens. So the earlier onset, adolescents may start out doing drugs, occasionally become addicted to it. So in other words, the earlier onset, you start experimenting with drugs, especially when Doc was talking about the ACE to cover up all that trauma. What it does, you're really setting the person up to become addicted. So what is drug addiction? We're talking about the genetic predisposition, the environmental factors, influences of mental health disorders, and social factors that contribute. What are some of the genetic predispositions? I'm glad you asked. So if you have a parent or someone who had some drug and alcohol issues, you're pretty much predisposed to that, and so it's passed on through your DNA. All right? So sometimes people can get it through the DNA, according to what science talks about, right? Not only that, the environmental factors. So if you live in an environment where there's a lot of fire trucks, there's gun violence, there's food deserts, there's a lot of poverty and things that's happening in those communities, then people usually get involved and get sucked into the environmental factors. Also, the mental factors, like I said, is brought on usually by drug use, drug induced. Due to you dealing with all those things I just mentioned, usually people turn to drugs and alcohol to cover up the pain, and next thing you know, now you have a mental health diagnosis. But a lot of times, a lot of us don't go get any counseling because we think we're good. We think we're good. This is normal how I act. It's not normal to be stuck in your room. It's not normal to be isolated. It's not normal for you to have anxiety. That's not normal. So a lot of times we normalize dysfunction. And then not only that, the social factors. What are your social conditionings? Meaning, did your parents allow you to use drugs and alcohol? Did they allow you to, use, pack pistol or fight or violence? Socially conditions that create the addiction right there in itself, because it's called addictive personality. It's not a, so we just use that word. So in other words, I got addictive personality. I'm just addicted to trauma. You hear a lot of brothers and sisters say that. Yeah, because those environmental factors and those social factors I just mentioned. So what is chemical dependency? Chemical dependency is a primary, permanent, progressive, I call it a disease that usually results in death. Primary meaning it causes its own symptoms, right? I mean, if you just use marijuana, that's the only symptom that you're going to get. If you only just pop bottles, that's the only thing you're going to get, meaning drink. All right? Progressive. Progressive meaning that it gets worse with over a period of usage. Every time a person picks up, oh, you just can't have one joint or one blunt. You got to have 4 or 5 blunts. You got to just have one shot. You got to have a whole bottle now. So it gets progressive. It gets worse, right? And permanent. They said permanently there's no known cure. But I disagree with that. There is a cure. Because the Bible says that he who the Lord sets free is free indeed. Right? And so a lot of times you have to go against science and go to what the master teacher says. But anyway, permanently, how do you permanently get healed from an addiction? Anybody? That's made up mind and don't pick up and use. That's it. Real simple. All right? So they call it a dis-ease. It disrupts your life. So for social, you start off social use, if you can use one blunt, one drink, and you're good. It's socially acceptable. You can go to happy hour and just have 2 minimum drinks, you're good, right? That's a social user. You don't have too many social users who use hard drugs, but social users that drink and does marijuana, that's a small number. That's not a large number. But anyway, abuse. Abuse starts when the users start to hide the addiction. It's when they hide it and they start putting eye drop in their eyes and they start, you got some bubble gum? Do I look like I'm under the influence? Do I look like it? I've been up all night. So that's abuse. Not only that, arguments. You argue. See, you already make me mad. I'm tired of this right here. See, call me. Come on. Let's go over here and get something to drink. Let's go. So abuse, you just like chaos. And then the chronic use is what? When you become psychologically, physically dependent on it. Now you need it to function. You need it. Now you got more than one drink. Now you got more than one hit. You got all that at your disposal because now you're chronic use. That's what happened to Whitney Houston up here. She started off social because of that environment, the music scene. Usually people that's in the music scene, they see all this kind of stuff, unfortunately. And she partook in it, and next thing you know, Miss Whitney Houston was addicted, and as a result, chemical dependency, the primary disease, the usual results of that, she ended up dying. Not only that, her daughter ended up dying as a result of that too as well, because why? Her social, environmental factors told her it was okay. So, anybody get something from it? So, addiction does not discriminate. People usually do, but drugs not. You can live in the suburbs. You can live in the rural areas. You can live in the urban areas. You can live, whatever. You don't care how much money you got. You don't care how, if you get a Quest card. I don't care if you make $50 billion a year. It will grip you, and the goal is to take you out. Here, the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Right, Helen? But the Most High God comes to give us life and that more abundantly. So here, we're talking about the addiction cycle. So here, you see the addiction cycle, it starts as a ritual. And then once you do the ritual, you begin to start using. Then you deal with the guilt and the shame, like the mental health therapist was talking about. Now I'm dealing with the guilt and shame. Now, the guilt and shame, now I got an emotion trigger because of guilt and the shame. Now I got a craving to go pick up and use because of the guilt and shame. And guess what? Now I'm back on that vicious cycle. It's a hamster wheel going around and around and around, and you don't get off the hamster wheel until, like this brother did right here, this brother Michael. Powerful actor. He played in The Wire. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore, Maryland got, the numbers. I do workshops out that way. The heroin epidemic and the fentanyl, just astronomical. But anyway, he watched the movie. He played in the movie, actually, as an actor, and it triggered his childhood trauma that he'd been through, as far as some stuff that he'd been through. And that guilt and shame came up, even while he was in this status. He brought some drugs from a guy, it was heroin, and was laced with fentanyl, and it killed him 2 years ago. 2021, 3 years ago. One thing about addiction, the tolerance. So the tolerance in your body. So when you start to build a the users need more of the drug to feel the effects of the chemical that they take. You build a tolerance. So one blunt ain't gonna do it. Just give me a whole half ounce. One shot ain't gonna do it. Just give me a fifth. 4-pack ain't gonna do it. Give me a case. And so what it does, you build their tolerance that at that high, that euphoria, right, if you will. So not only that, it impacts your withdrawal, the body. It's called acute withdrawal, meaning you might use and then acutely you start feeling the withdrawal where you start, feeling sleepy. You may feel drowsiness. You may feel irritable. Those are going some of the psychological, but the physical, you might have diarrhea. You might have to go. So, some different areas, it shows it right here, right? So it impacts everybody differently. I'm showing heroin, but it depends on what drug you may use. If a person uses stimulus, you might get a different effect. It's a psychological addiction, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So what is the polysubstance abuse? Polysubstance abuse is that people use, it's called cross addiction. Use many different drugs to feel that desired effect. That's a polysubstance abuse. What we're seeing now, a lot of these overdoses, some people are accidentally overdosing because they're using multiple different drugs. You may use a stimulant, which is cocaine, or you may use a downer, which is heroin. And so they say, oh, let me get something to drink. Oh, matter of fact, let me go ahead and pop this perk, which is opiate pill. And now you got a cocktail, and your body's like, what's going on? And usually the person accidentally overdose. Usually have a psychosis effect when you're dealing with that. A psychotic effect where you start hallucinating. A person hallucinate, start talking to themselves. Some of them have been diagnosed called schizoid affective disorder, where has been cocaine induced because due to the trauma that they've been covering up, all the shame, the guilt, the the childhood issues. Now it impacts that mindset and psychotic effect. So alcohol. Alcohol is a downer. Mm-hmm. It's a downer. One thing about alcohol, it impacts so many people. I mean, it don't care how you look, how much money you got, what you do. It impacts people in all different areas. Okay? Milwaukee is the drunkest city in America. Did y'all know that? Drunkest city in America. That's why they call us Brew City. We're the drunkest, most alcoholics in the country. You shake a tree around here and alcoholic will fall out. I'm serious. We talking about closet drinking. We talking about people that just drink at them brew. Alcoholics. And look at this cross country right here. 29.5 million people. And look at this numbers. People's ages 12 and under had alcohol addiction issues. 12 years old and under. We got a serious problem, y'all. So you need a drink at that. You see on the right side there's a healthy liver. But then on the left side right here is the irregular liver, cirrhosis, what my uncle had. But it's cirrhosis of the liver is look like Swiss cheese, where your liver have pockets of holes in it, or it become inflamed. And it's just a sad situation where it breaks down your body, with the alcohol, how it breaks your body down. Heroin does the same thing, all right? So I want to just share a little clip with you about how we talk about Milwaukee, why we have a lot of youth, why we have a lot of people with drugs. It's not right, the reality. So take a look at this clip real quick, briefly.
We keep getting shot and killed every single day.
It's kill or be killed? Is that what you really think?
What we telling you is, we live in 53206.
Look, let's get a hustle. Let's get I know you're gonna sing at my next barbecue.
If you cooking, I'm singing.
I tell you, the streets don't love nobody.
2 murders last night, 5 the night before that.
You ever wonder why us? Why are we suffering? Why is Milwaukee the worst place for black people to live?
Man, we were born in this war zone. So I did. But this right here, what we used to use.
It was Lavelle and his cousin Oscar.
Yo, I need to talk to you. Stop worrying, bro. I told you I got you.
What? Talk.
They were shooting at me.
I gotta do something.
Well, if you got a magic formula to change the 53206, I advise you to share it.
You can sing. You can inspire and make a change that way.
Why are you trying to play me? People ain't getting high in the 53206.
Just take your pain and pour it into the song. Go! Go!
The violence. I'm done.
We gotta get the community together. A peace rally. I'm gonna get everybody.
No, he didn't deserve this. I get 25 to life.
You don't solve violence with just more violence.
I mean, parents burying their children.
What's your thoughts on that video clip? Is that reality? You say yes, Elder? What do you mean by that, sir?
Well, it's just the truth of what's going on. I mean, like the young lady on 12th and Locust the other day, found in a car shop dead. And 2 young kids on the south side robbing somebody for some weed. And now 3 of them going to prison for life and 2 dead. You know what I mean? And this is a continuous cycle every day. You wake up to it every morning. You know what I mean? And you really turn the news on and say, well, who done got killed last night? You know, somebody got killed.
Yes, sir. Come on, man.
My grandchildren, they need some help. Their father was killed, due to drugs, shot 16 times. They've been acting out in school. One of them is doing real good now. My other one is terrible, and I'm scared for her. And she's only 12. And I don't know what to do.
Okay. Y'all for sharing. Anybody else like to share? Come on, sir.
A programmed cultural lifestyle now. It's been programmed into people, to the youth that grow up and think that it's natural to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Program. Anybody else? Come on, Helen.
Not the whole story.
Right. Not the whole story.
It's not.
Okay. Can you talk to that? Speak to that?
I sure can. So I own a home in 53206. So I am representing that area, and that everything is not death in that community.
That's
There
right.
is life. There are people that are in that environment that are soaring beyond the situations that are living. I don't want to say normal, but healthy lives that are raising healthy families. It is inundated with a lot of that. So when I see that, that's not the whole story. And I know it's depictive of what is, like this gentleman back here said, a reality, but I couldn't even stand in agreement with him with that because that's not my reality. See, I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, in Cabrini Green. I don't look like what I've been through.
Right.
And that did not define me, and my story is still being written. I am not at my final destination. That was a part of it. So I represent the population of people who go through that and make it out.
Come on, sir.
crippled, the inability to function normal.
Yeah.
I acted the same way them cats did there. It was when that I started learning how to grow up to be a man that things started changing.
That's good. Have somebody over here? Okay. Come on, man.
What is zip code 5? What area of zip code 5 through 206?
Capitol Drive all the way to like Locust, the area. A lot of communities.
If you're familiar with like Amani, Metcalf, like it's so
Yeah.
enlarged. Oh yeah,
Yes.
it goes down towards
Yeah.
like
Third.
I think it's the largest zip code.
it is, and they rezoned it recently so that the alderman has that Alderman Stanford, he has a larger area. So it is huge, but yeah.
Because I know our pastors say that that's I don't know what word I'm looking for, but that's one of the known worst zip codes there is.
It is.
It is. Highest incarceration. Yeah. It's our highest incarceration rate in the country. We'll get back to that. And single parent families. So, yeah, so a lot of those kids in those environments, I work with those kids too as well, turn to the marijuana to deal with that trauma because that is some of their reality, but not for everyone, like Helen's saying, because those are the ones, unfortunately, that's being murdered. But for them, that is their reality. They feel there's no way out, you know. And so when that, anytime you strip resources and dilapidated housing and poor food that's in those areas, people turn to that, the marijuana or drugs, to cover up the pain, and hopefully things will change when we know politics is politics. That's a whole other subject. So opiates, like I said, is a big issue. You see this lady, shooting in her neck. And right there, the lady in the middle is called Chasing the Dragon, where they're smoking on a foil. Then you have another guy, the IV user, that uses it. So anything to cover up the pain, they're doing what they have to do to cover up that trauma. No matter what zip code you come from, the trauma it definitely impacts people. The younger people that I work with are smoking marijuana. Not only that, they drink lean. If you know anything about lean, they call it scissor, you know. And so with that, they put, different toxic, really a cocktail. So you have, Jolly Ranchers. You may have a Xanax. You may have some other things, volumes. You may have anything, and it's a really syrupy drink, and they sip on that, and that goes straight to your liver and your lungs area. I talked to one doctor. He said, by the time these kids are 30 years old, they start using, it depends on the early onset they start using, they'll be in kidney dialysis because of the alcohol, and not the alcohol, but they're just drinking liquid opiates. That's what it is. Promethazine and codeine. So, here you have Juice World, which a lot of the young rappers subscribe to. Some of y'all probably know about that. And so here, like I said, doing those different types of drugs. He overdosed and died recently, a few years back. Also, Mac Miller, I think 2019, same thing. As a result, they did arrest some of the people who sold them the drug. It was fentanyl in those pills. So a lot of pills that they get, they pop those pills, but it's laced with fentanyl, and we'll talk about that. Cocaine's another one. It's not going anywhere, whether you snort it or you smoke it. It goes, and so usually the people that snort it, usually about 20 seconds, it gets into your nostrils, your area. And then when you're a person, usually the IV users, about 5 to 10 seconds, goes right into the vein. When you smoke it, that's the highest route of administration because a person inhale it and they're cutting off the oxygen to your brain, and your heart is like, what's going on? What's going on? Because when you exhale, your heart is going boom, 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 boom. One or two things are going to happen. You're going to feel the euphoria, you'll get high, you feel the high, the buzz, or you're going to die. Pretty much cardiac arrest. Meth is really popping right here in Milwaukee too right now. With methamphetamine, they smoke it. You can smoke it, you can shoot it, you can snort it. Same way as cocaine, you get more bang for your buck. So if you buy a person usually buy a $25 bag, and usually that's worth like about an 8 ball or something like that, $75 worth. So if you see here meth, you feel powerful and addicted to it. It's a stimulant. It's a central nervous stimulant, that brain stem that goes here all the way down. So the person really feels powerful, just like they do when they do cocaine. You feel empowered. So some people say, hey, man, when I do it, Mr. Richardson, I go to work. You know, or I can just go do what I need to do, spend time with my family. After you're doing meth, after you're doing cocaine? Yeah. So they normalize dysfunction, unfortunately. Here you see the young lady, and it impacts everybody differently. A month or two later after she used, there she is, and then she got some recovery time. Then she turned to a nice-looking young lady. Fentanyl is definitely an issue. Fentanyl is a synthetic drug. It is not, especially the street kind. So people are selling it. You have China, you have the Mexicans, and you have, the U.S. got it here too as well. So if we want to get into all the, they are in cahoots with this. Unfortunately, people are dying due to fentanyl. If you look at that, the dose of fentanyl is that right there, just on that pencil, right there. That's enough to take you out, just that much. And I talked to some police officers, friends of mine. You don't even have to use a drug. They can go in there and do a raid, and it gets in their system, or they can just ingest it, and some of them even start falling out and have to get Narcan because it's so strong like that. So fentanyl, look at this, 83.6% of opiate-involved overdose deaths involve more than one drug. Fentanyl was on that. You see those numbers up there? Drug combinations, I talked about it earlier, about the polysubstance abuse, the combination of drugs, how to take you out. And not only that, 26.59%, a single agent exposure to it. You see the top number, fentanyl is up top right there. Fentanyl is. So it's just, we got a serious epidemic. We got a serious pandemic too as well going on at the same time. And so, yeah. So trauma, intergenerational. So the intergenerational factors. Dr. Joy DeGruy says that she wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And she argues that due to the intergenerational factors of why people generally impacted by trauma, like Doc was saying, but pretty much African and black, brown, and yellow communities, we suffer even more due to the stigma of not going to get the mental health. Go get some help. We can't, ain't nothing wrong with believing in God and believing in Jesus. But it's okay to take your mental health meds and still believe in him. Because we was taught, okay, don't go tell nobody your business. Because why? They didn't want protective services to take the kids out of the home. So you said, shh, don't you tell them people at school what's going on in this house. My mother used to say, what says in this house? Stays. Oh, y'all had the same mama I had, right? And so we kept it like that. But come to find out, we were suffering in silence, and the intergenerational, it passed on with them secrets. Secrets that was passed on too as well. Had a mental health, you didn't know he had a mental health issue. He just talked to himself. He came home from the war. You knew that on your big mama side, they like them little girls underage. Don't get quiet now. You know your sister them, they call them fast, but she was doing something she had no business, and So it's just that intergenerational. It's passed on where people really don't address it or deal with it because we would, shh, don't say anything. We all right, everything's good. And when that the mental health and the trauma, we normalize dysfunction, whether you went through drugs or alcohol or not, you can have a person who's responsible, have a two-parent home, and still there's some issues there that's not being addressed too as well. So in closing, resilience. I grew up in 53206, all right? Grew up there, single mother. If you see me right there, looking like Eazy-E. So, yes, I was definitely about that lifestyle. About 13 years old, just got involved in it because my sisters and brothers were criminals. So seeing them involved in that lifestyle, they normalized, they made it look cool or whatnot. So about the time I was 13, I had my own bag. And then about the time I was 14, marijuana. By the time I was 14, we was gang affiliated. It's called the Two-Fold Boys. It was off 24th from Capitol. So being involved in that lifestyle. Then from there, just my sister was shot and killed. She was a prostitute, left for dead on Capitol Drive. And while she's dying on the way to Freighter Hospital, we began to smoke marijuana and continue to drink. So we're drinking Wild Irish Rose, anything that we can use to cover up all that pain. Then from there, things began to happen. As a result, she did not die from the injury, thank God, but she had 164 staples put in her arm. So now things begin to happen from there. My younger brother caught party to a homicide. He goes to East Allen School for Boys. He was just here earlier. Then from there, the cycle continues where I was physically and mentally abused by the older brother who didn't like me. And so it began to happen. So he's like 10, 15 years older than me. This guy has some serious explosive anger issues. So from there, my plot was he ain't gonna hit me no more because I'm gonna take him out. So that was my belief. That was my belief. And so then just went on that vicious cycle of me and my brother trying to be the protector of the family, due to my sisters them being in domestic violence relationships. We would run over here to 27th and Burleigh. We run on the east side. Whatever we had to do to help protect our sisters, because you ain't gonna hit my sisters or nothing. So now things begin to happen. Let me see, about 17, 18 years old, get a call that my sister on my dad's side committed suicide. So she committed suicide, and that took us on a spiral out of control where really just anger. I had self-righteous anger. So getting involved in that, me and my guy, there were some guys from California, and so we started trafficking crack cocaine. And when trafficking crack cocaine, we had to set up shop at different locations. So we had apartment buildings, we had houses or whatnot, different stash houses. And so from there, I remember one time, an op, this guy didn't like me, I didn't like him. Biggie Smalls looking joker. Pulled the gun to my head and squeezed the trigger and it jammed. And I continued to use drugs despite what was going on to cover up all the pain. So I was, for 19 to 20 years, that was my life, addicted to crack cocaine and crime and violence. And so, by the grace of God, in 1996, he set me free. At the numerous treatment programs, I finally got free. I used to be a client of WCS. I was a client of WCS and an outpatient. They said, you need inpatient. I said, why is that? He said, you got PTSD. I said, I don't have no STDs, man. He said, you got PTSD. I said, what's that? That's post-traumatic stress syndrome. Due to all the deaths and loss, you cover up the use drugs and alcohol to cover up all that pain that you've been through, sir. Okay, well, sign me up. But I completed the program, but I went back to the streets. I wasn't ready. In closing, though, I went. My counselor saw something in me that I didn't see it myself. They said, you need to go back to school. So I went to school, got a degree, all right? I told you about those. Did 9 years in school. From there, I went to go speak. Went to Chicago, Inglewood, Southside, Pretty Greens. You know, I love Chicago. Them brothers showed me love over there. A lot of my mentors are from there, from Detroit. And so just being able to go and just tell my story in the Southside in Milwaukee. From there, I went and I was homeless and still in recovery. Homeless, still believing God. Homeless because I went through a divorce. And I said, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. Greater is he in me than he is in the world. So I continue to do what I needed to do, just persevere. And from there, I opened up my own business, Mann Behavior Services, right here while I had my wilderness experience. He gave me fresh manna to live on, which is his word. Then from there, he sent me a queen, because you can't go with all that trauma and drama and you ain't dealt with it. And he sent me a queen. See, my dome was messed up. I was a king, but I had to get my dome together before he sent me my queen. Somebody get that before you leave. All right, thank you. Thank you. And any questions at this time? For us two. Come on up here. Us three. Come on. Let's give it up for my colleagues, y'all. Any questions for us? Come on up here. Come on up here. Come on. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know which one of y'all this is directed to. Due to my granddaughter father getting killed from being a drug dealer, shot up 16 times. She hasn't been right since then. And you spoke on what goes on in this house, don't tell it. So she was in some, I'm gonna say, behavior that was out of order. And my daughter got in her behind, and she woke up the next morning and told my daughter, I'm going to school and tell these white folks on you, you know, because she whooped her butt. She got suspended from school for 3 days. After 3 days, went back yesterday. She just got suspended 2 more days. So if anybody know any place where I can get her some help, please reach out to me. Let me know. I'm willing to walk that road with her because I don't want her to go down that road that I went down. You know, because I know it's a lot worse out there now. They got some New Jack City tricks now that I don't even know about. You know, and I don't want her to experience that. And my daughter is just stressed out, don't know what to do, and it's just spiraling out of control. She's only 12.
I do, but I don't go no lower than 12. Praise God. It's a heavy lift. I gotta keep it real because my mental health is important to me, so I don't overextend myself beyond my own reach. I do 12-year-olds. What I say is to get her an evaluation first, right? Because I mean that would be the first stop. Because she's gonna have to get it out. And right now she doesn't know how to get it out, so she's acting out, right? And I said earlier, what's in us is coming out.
Yes, it is.
And that's all of us,
Yeah.
you know. And so she has a lot of pain, which you expressed, and she's experienced a lot and she's seen a lot. So the first thing is to, talk with her and say, hey, would you be willing to see a therapist? I want to take you to talk to someone. Or what I do for patients, I do mental health workshops and groups. And so what I've learned is that in a group environment amongst peers and people that you realize that look like you and, dang, is this my twin? That's my story. It helps children, but also adults be able to be transparent and comfortable with telling their truth. So I do offer, it's a girls group that I offer once a month, and it's free. And so maybe having her come in that environment first to introduce her to a space where she can talk may be helpful because sometimes right now it sounds like she's just rebellious. And so it may be hard to kind of force her. And you know, mental health, just like us, you gotta want it. It has to be your choice. Otherwise, you just in a room sitting here, and saying nothing and then it shut down.
No, because I'm willing to sit on the outside where she can go on the inside and express herself.
But there's different programs too, like someone else can talk about that's out in the community. I'm telling you what I offer, but there's other programs as well for girls. I know, is it called Milwaukee?
Anybody that got the information afterwards before we leave, please give it to me.
Oh, what I was going to say too, I think it's really important to remember mom in this picture, right? That she is there to help support the daughter, but she needs support herself. And like I was talking about that pie before, right? She might not have a whole lot of pie to help her daughter manage her little amount of pie, right? So getting her the support that she needs and getting her the support to help her daughter is going to be necessary part of the equation. And it's a kind of a facet of leading by example, right? That I'm trying, I'm showing up, and I'm trying to do the work. I'm hoping that you can follow and do the same.
Yeah, there's a lot of resources, but like my colleague's saying, that the mother has to want the help too as well. Because a lot of times the kids gonna talk about what's going on in the house. Because kids ain't phony like that. The adults get with the math, everything's good. But the kids, she's gonna really expose what's happening. So it's good that she go along, but she gets some help for her trauma too as well. The mom, regarding the secrets that have been held in the home. All right. So there are a lot of resources. Just see us a little bit later, okay? All right. So come on, sir. Robert.
It's a really great question. It's been a long journey, so you might be able to tell I'm not young. So it took me some time to get to this path, but I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. My mom had a lot of mental health issues. She herself suffered from serious trauma, trafficking trauma as a child herself, and it was painful to watch. And I am just striving to be the helper I wished I had. And I wish I had somebody to kind of guide me on that journey. And that's kind of what fuels me and what brings me fire. Thanks for asking.
Any more questions? All right. We'll break for lunch and then we'll come back for our part two with the panelists. Come on, let's give it up. Thank you.